expert and New York Times best-selling author, Dr. Sarah, a.k.a. the Paleo Mom, is coming up next. Hey, Sarah, welcome to the call. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
I am looking forward to this. Our little pre-call chat kind of went way longer than
It was
expected.
a,
We're like,
I
oh,
think
we're not even recording.
yeah, I think we got into it without
We went down
without
the rabbit
trying.
holes. And so for to provide a little bit of context to all the listeners, share with us who Sarah is, your journey, how the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, the ugly, open up the closets and just, so people
All
can
of
get an
it.
idea of who Sarah is, and then, of course, we'll obviously go down rabbit holes because we already went down a few.
So when I introduced myself, I introduced myself as Dr. Sarah Ballantyne because I have a PhD in medical biophysics and have a medical research background. So I like to emphasize the part where I went to school for a very, very, very long time,
You paid money, you
and
paid your
therefore,
dues, you earned it.
yeah, therefore I earned that acronym the hard way. So Dr. Sarah Ballantyne. But actually, most people call me the Paleo Mom. So that is my website, my handle on social media. That is actually often when I get recognized at the grocery store, the farmer's market, or
Hmm.
off at a conference. Often people be like, oh, "Mom," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not yours."
No.
But sure, sure. Call
I'll
me
tell you
Sarah
what to eat,
instead.
though.
But so I do have this medical research background, but I was also a person who was very sick.
Hmm.
So I have four diagnosed autoimmune diseases, but I was also morbidly obese, borderline type 2 diabetic, basically had metabolic syndrome, had all kinds of like random things that would happen to my body from inflammation, carpal tunnel, stenosing tenosynovitis, which is a form of tendonitis. I would break out into random rashes. I was allergic to cardboard. So if I touched cardboard, I would like break out into a
Wow.
rash wherever the cardboard touched me.
How do
I
you
had,
survive as a child?
well, so this was an
I
allergy that
mean, just
developed.
life, I guess. There's
Yeah,
cardboard
it developed.
everywhere.
It developed in grad school. So I was in my early 20s when
Okay.
that particular allergy developed, and I just had I was allergic to latex too, so I had nitrile gloves. And I worked in a lab because it was grad school, so I would just
Uh-huh.
borrow a box that never got returned, and I just had gloves with me everywhere I went, and would like wear long sleeves and put on gloves if I had to touch cardboard. And
So you were that girl.
oh yeah, yeah, I was.
And for people
Well,
that are just listening, I just did the air quotes there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I wasn't the person who wore a HEPA filter mask in the airport,
Okay.
but um, no, I was a person with a lot of health problems. And if you asked me back then, like, oh, like what is the main thing, I would have told you it was because I was obese. I was nearly 300 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
and I really saw my health as being just that number on the scale, and all of these other things were just kind of like in the background, but it was all of these other things that were actually driving my issues with weight.
Yeah.
And it was all of these other things that were actually eroding my quality of life and making it so that, I would pass out at 6 p.m. for the night because I had, crippling exhaustion as a result of hypothyroidism. It was all of these things that was driving all of the inflammation in my joints. And I had autoimmune skin conditions and fibromyalgia, which is chronic pain. And I I really looked at health very simplistically
Uh-huh.
back then. So I really looked at it as if I look like the model on that magazine cover, then I will be healthy, right? And I had to learn the hard way that the word thin and the word healthy don't actually mean the same thing.
Yeah.
And that was a major part of my own journey. So I ended up having a pretty complicated first pregnancy because I was obese when I got pregnant. And then my life just fell apart. So I had a baby who cried all the time, didn't sleep. She was colicky and she had sensory processing disorder. So she was just constantly overwhelmed. And I would rock her to sleep for like 45 minutes, but then she would sleep for 20. And so I was sleep deprived. I was overweight. I was inflamed. And I was just I was in my second postdoctoral research fellowship after getting a PhD. I was doing cancer research, super cool stuff. Border like next step is tenure track position at an institution, and I'm starting to like do all of the networking to figure out where I'm going to go. And I went, "Oh, I can't do all this. I can't do the baby that doesn't sleep and that point of an academic career is typically very demanding. So as you're establishing your own research program, you're working 70, 80-hour weeks, usually for like 5, 6 years at that point
Hmm.
until you develop, you get your grants cycling and you get your technicians and your postdocs. Once you have all that established, researchers can work a little bit less, but research is one of those very underappreciated fields where people are working ridiculous hours and not getting paid a whole lot for what they're doing and how they're expanding human knowledge.
So you were
And I
living the Big Bang Theory life.
pretty much, yeah, just the biology version of it. Although my husband is an astrophysicist, so I was definitely tied into exactly the Big Bang
So it
Theory as
was
well.
so that's was it Laura Sarah Fowler or whatever, Sheldon's girlfriend? Because
Yes.
that's her. She's the biology one,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And then there
That's
was who's the astro? Who's
oh,
the
it's been so long.
there's somebody in there. Or
Yeah.
was it Sheldon? I don't know. I don't remember.
So our life was less comedic for sure. But definitely very little laugh track went along with our life. Um, but I just hit this wall where I was too sick to balance motherhood of a challenging baby and this career that I had wanted since I was 7.
Yeah,
You asked me as a 7-year-old, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would say, I want to
you
be a
knew.
research scientist. It's what I wanted to be with my life. My grandfather was a cancer researcher, so that's why
Okay.
I had that. That's why I knew that was a thing
You
I
knew
could
the
do.
question was gonna come. Like,
Yeah,
where does a 7-year-old get this?
yeah, yeah,
I
exactly.
didn't even
So
know that existed when I was 7.
one of my earliest memories is of my grandfather babysitting me and him lifting me up and putting me on one of the lab bench stools
Hmm.
and asking me to move his like tumor mice from the dirty cage into the clean cage. And I was probably 2, and I was just moving
It
these
was
mice,
your norm.
these gross tumors on their backs, and well, also I think I was scared of being bitten, but those particular mice were very docile, and so someone had to like show me that they were friendly, and then I wasn't afraid because they were friendly mice. But
Yeah.
I think I got enough praise for being such a brave 2-year-old. I think that really set me up for wanting more praise in life, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what pretty much all of us adults are trying to seek the same kind of praise we got as kids every time
Yeah.
we did something great. So, especially as firstborns.
Yeah.
So, that's probably some kind of subliminal thing that happened that directed me towards research. But yeah, it was the career that was my dream career, and I was right there. I'd worked so hard. I had scholarships. I had my own grants, even as a postdoc.
Hmm.
I had these super high profile papers. Like I was top notch, and just went, oh no, I'm too sick. I can't do this. And so I ended up deciding the National Institutes of Health has this program called the Reentry Grants for Women, and you have to have a PhD and so many years of postdoctoral research experience. But I met all the qualifications, and what they do is they allow women to take up to 8 years off of their research careers, and then they facilitate reentry into academia. So they
Hmm.
pay your salary for 3 years. They give you some research funds. So they basically help support women, and there's no limitations on why you would take time off. So I was taking it off to have kids because I ended up having a second one. But it was whatever reason women would take time off. So we end up often in these caregiver roles, right? So there was no limitations on why you would take the time off, but it
Hmm.
was basically to help level the playing field in science a little bit because there are still a lot of gender inequalities in especially research
Okay.
in scientific fields. So I decided I would take this time off, and that gave me the time to start applying this amazing medical research background that I have and all the scientific knowledge to the problem of my own health. I mean, up until that point, I had my first postdoc. I was typically working 100-hour weeks with that particular research program. There was no space in my life for anything else, let alone going through papers to try to figure out, what piece I was missing that was making me like sick. Like why am I not healthier?
Yeah.
What am I just taking the drugs that the doctor gives me that mask my symptoms? So that gave me the space to start really working on myself. And I ended up losing like 130 pounds. I reversed diabetes. I normalized my blood pressure and my cholesterol. And I didn't fix everything. So I achieved that thing that was the thin part. And I
Yeah.
thought my life was going to be like rainbows and sunshine and magical unicorns everywhere. Right. So as a person who struggled with weight pretty much from 10 years old on, I just thought that if all I did was I just lost this weight, then everything would be fixed. And it wasn't. I was in more pain. I was getting more migraines. I had irritable bowel syndrome. That was worse. I have two autoimmune skin conditions. They were getting worse. I was having anxiety attacks and battling depression.
Hmm.
And we moved, and I didn't have a support system anymore in my new city. And then I had two kids, and that first one who was colicky grew up to be a horrible toddler. So, I mean, she's an amazing 12-year-old now, but holy smokes, did she put me through the ringer as oh, I earned my parenting stripes the hard way with her. And so I was in such an awful place in terms of my health and my physical health and my mental health.
Hmm.
And I ended up started grasping at straws. Okay, so um, egg allergies can cause eczema. Maybe I need to give up eggs. What is this gluten link? And I found this article on Professor Lauren Cordain's thepaleodiet.com. He's sort of considered the father of
Yeah.
the modern paleo diet. That was about one of my autoimmune skin conditions, lichen planus, and the paleo diet. And he had some scientific references. So that was my brain. My brain went, ooh, reference. Oh, I can read about this in PubMed. This is great.
Yeah.
And it was I was so desperate for a solution. And my reaction to the paleo diet is the pretty common reaction of, that sounds crazy. I'm not doing that. Like it was just this, here's this list of foods you're going to give up. And despite the fact that I had done some pretty extreme diets to lose weight, this seemed like really ridiculous. But those references were everything for me, because then I started reading the scientific articles that the paleo diet was based on.
Yeah.
And I got more and more into it. I took 3 months or so to research it. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it for 3 months, cold turkey. I'm just going to do this. And within 2 weeks, I went off all 6 prescription medications that I was on at the time. The only time I've ever had a migraine since is when I've accidentally eaten dairy. All of my GI symptoms went away. My asthma went away. My skin cleared up. Like
It was
there
the
was
life.
my
It was
unicorn.
the game changer.
Yeah, and it was amazing for me, because my approach has always been this like science nerd approach, because that is the thing I have been since I was 7,
Yeah.
and or 2 since I was moving those mice, right? Um, but also the personal experience, it 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 made me really believe. So it wasn't just about the logical, like look at the scientific facts, but that experience made it so much more personal for me. And I dove right in, like I leaned in. I became a zealot. Like let's be honest. I was way too enthusiastic about paleo. I would like tell the
It
hairdresser
was
why.
your new obsession.
Right, but I was like inappropriate. I would tell the hairdresser why the bagel she was eating was going to kill her. Like not cool. Not okay in any way. And it was when I was trying to tell the dental hygienist about it through all of the things in my mouth, as I was just a routine cleaning, that was when I realized I needed an outlet. Like I'm like, oh, I don't have any friends in this new city. I just have these two
You
young
figured out
kids.
what
They
was
don't
going on.
that I need something. And so
Yeah.
I launched a website. I did not put a ton of thought into it. I was like, I'm a mom. Uh, I love paleo. I want to write about it. I want to share the recipes that I'm developing in my kitchen, because I've always loved cooking. I'm just going to be the paleo mom. Is this available? Yes, it is. It's available on all the social media sites. Great. I'll be the paleo mom. And it was an hour's worth of research into like, what's the space that I can fill?
Mm-hmm.
And it became something so much more because of my science background. It over time, I didn't realize at the time that the science nerd in me is something so inherent I can't turn it off. Like
Yeah.
it's just permeates everything about me. And so I thought I was going to be talking about my journey following the paleo diet with young kids and getting them to transition to paleo because that became more of a priority at that point. And instead, it became the place where I can read all these scientific articles that I love doing and being this translator of what is the person in the academic lab who only talks to, three other people in the world who are interested in the one little signaling molecule that they look at, and translating that because I'm collecting that information from thousands of different researchers, translating it to the average person so that they know what's actionable. What do we know in science and academia that we don't know as just part of public knowledge, and how can I bridge those two worlds together?
Yeah.
And it became so much of a passion, and it grew really quickly. So I also very what was just an outlet for my enthusiasm, it resonated with people in a way that I didn't anticipate.
Hmm.
But it's because nowadays there's so much propaganda, there's so much marketing, there's so much like the soundbite type stuff. People are smart. They
Yeah.
can see right through that type of marketing now. And what I was providing was just the explanation. Here's all the science. Here's the full explanation. I don't dumb things down. I just take the time to explain it to an audience that I assume doesn't have a PhD in medical biophysics. I
The
assume maybe
rest of
ninth grade.
us.
Right. I assume ninth grade science, ninth or 10th grade, right? So I assume you know what a cell is sort of where I start. And I figure that it's my job to explain it so that you can understand it and act on it.
Hmm.
And I didn't, this is the accidental part of this career that I created for myself. I didn't realize how hungry the general public is for that kind of information, but it was just my passion. That's just what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to write. I was really excited about it. And it was the right resonance of what I wanted to do with what people needed to be able to take control of their own health and
Hmm.
really start making more informed decisions. And as I've gone, I have really let go of a lot of paleo dogma. So I present a lot of the nuance and the context and why something like lentils or gluten-free oats, which traditionally would not be considered paleo, might work for some people, but not for others. And I really try to stay rooted in the scientific evidence. But it's been an amazing journey because what happened was I was too sick to do the thing that I thought I wanted to do since I was 7. But my experience of being so sick, combined with my
Yeah.
education and combined with a longstanding passion for scientific literacy. I used to, talk to elementary schoolers about science just for fun. And I get to like take all of those things together, my love of cooking, right? My love of art, all of those things together now form the basis of what I sort of consider my accidental career. But when I hit my 8 years of, okay, that's all I'm allowed to take off for the National Institutes of Health reentry grants for women, I'm supposed to go into the lab now. I went, oh no, what I'm doing now is way more important.
I'm not
This is
doing the
this is
lab.
I'm not going back to the lab where I talk to my 3 people who care about the one little signaling molecule that I spend my entire career studying. I want to be that mouthpiece. I want to be that translator that helps bring the really amazing knowledge that those researchers are dedicating their
Hmm.
lives to elucidating and understanding. And I want to bring that to the person who is just trying to figure out what is the best way to spend their money at the grocery store to be healthy and not have to spend all day in the kitchen. Like, and there's so much
Yeah.
information that is relevant to us that
It's
we
information
don't.
overload.
Well, I think that it's in part it's we have dietary recommendations in this country since they began in 1916
Hmm.
have been like charts, right?
Yeah.
So for the basic four, right, which is was the king of dietary guidelines until the food pyramid, but then the food pyramid, and then my plate, and then all of those things. It was like let's make dietary guidelines a one-page infographic, basically, and we'll just give people that information. And it has never been enough. It has never been enough information. Those were flawed guidelines for sure, but the bigger problem was there was no explanation. It's like if someone told you to follow the speed limit on a road without telling you that that curve coming up is really tight, and if you take it too fast, you'll go over the cliff, right? If you understand what the speed limit is, why the speed limit is what it is on the road, you're more likely to at least stay within the realm of that speed limit. But if you have no idea that that curve is coming, that's super dangerous, you might way overspeed on that road and hurt yourself or hurt someone else.
Yeah.
And food is like that. If we don't understand why this thing is healthy and this thing isn't, first of all, we can't adapt to new information. And we've seen big changes in the flawed dietary guidelines, but also the alternative health that's sort of embracing better information with less influence from, big food companies, agriculture, those types of things. We all have the problem of, if we only communicate dietary guidelines as a set of rules, eat this, don't eat this sometimes, never eat this, whatever it is, then we don't give people the tools they need to adapt when there's new information that means, oh, this food we thought was good isn't anymore, or this food we thought wasn't good actually is. We need to be able to respect that we don't, as humans, don't know everything.
Hmm.
And we need to be open to new information in order to continue to grow as like an entire species. And so if you distill everything to a set of rules, first of all, people don't
No, I
like,
don't like
if you
rules.
don't understand the rules, you're not going to follow them, right?
Even the ones
Like,
I understand, if I don't agree with it, I'm like, yeah,
right.
sure, that just doesn't apply to me.
If it's a rule and it's hard and there's no like you'll go to jail if you break it, which is what diet rules are, right?
But it tastes really good, so I don't
It
care.
tastes really great. And what's the consequence? Cardiovascular disease in 30 years, right? That's not enough of a motivator for most people. But if you can really turn that into an education, what I'd love to see is like the health classes that my kids have to take actually teach them some of this physiology, some
I
of it,
would be
how,
really
what
curious to see how your kids are in these classes. They'd be
they
sitting in
are.
class, be like, I don't think you know who my mom is, Teach.
Okay,
She wrote the
so
book you're reading.
my 9-year old is definitely the hardest one here because she's so enamored with the idea of me being famous. And I keep trying to explain to her, it's like, no, when I go to that conference where everyone knows who I am and I'm keynoting, sure, I'll be famous there, but it's not like I'm anonymous in my day-to-day life, kid. Like, this is
You're
not
not walking down Sunset Boulevard
right.
and, hey,
I don't
oh my
have,
gosh.
I know, I don't have to like wear the baseball cap and the glasses and like, the big frumpy jacket to walk down the street. Um, but my kids are under instructions to like, look, you're getting good information at home. Just be quiet in that classroom. Like, just say what you need to say to pass the test, and like, just don't like, they're it's not your job, right? It's not my kid's job to educate the teacher. They have a curriculum that they are forced. The teacher might not even agree with the curriculum that they have to
The
teach.
majority of them don't agree with it,
And
yeah.
right. And so I said, just let that's my job, is to help educate them, and hopefully eventually, like my as you said, like macro dream, as we were talking before we
Uh-huh.
hit the record button, my macro dream is to start impacting policy. So we start changing the education that our kids are getting in school about diet and lifestyle. So it stops being calories in, calories out, stops being the simplistic view of my plate, and we start actually giving
Yeah.
them better education to understand how food is impacting their bodies, start taking away food subsidies for food that is unhealthy for us, so
Hmm.
that the food that is healthy for us can be more affordable, and like change the school lunch program. Like that's the ultimate goal, is to make eating a healthy diet. And this doesn't need to be under the paleo umbrella, right? There's a lot of shades here of healthy diet,
Yeah.
but just make healthier choices more accessible, more affordable, make them easier. If you're not addicted to these foods that are designed to be hyper palatable, so they literally trigger addiction circuitry in
Yeah.
our brain. If you're not addicted to those foods, that apple is going to taste a lot better, that steamed broccoli or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it really, in order to, what I do now is I'm really working on the education piece, but really in order to change the landscape of public health in this country, it needs to be a very multidimensional approach, and that
For
is
sure.
that is the ultimate goal.
No, that's powerful. I think it's something that needs to be done because there are a lot of flaws, like you said, uh,
Yeah.
in the system now. But just kind of to bring it a little more micro. So, say for the listener that is under the idea and beliefs, because right now it's so heavily pushed that, like, hey, I just need to watch the calories in, calories out. Like, oh,
Mhm.
I can eat this donut or whatever it is because I'm going to the gym.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that seems to be a very
Yeah,
inefficient way to
that's the
to do it.
1970s information, right?
And so
Um,
what's your rebuttal to somebody that's thinking that what they're doing, obviously they think that that's okay because that's, the social norm.
yes. So I mean, it's hard to engage in a short conversation about I would say sort of this is like diet myth busting, right?
Mhm.
So I'm going to take everything that you think is true about diet, I'm going to tell you that it's wrong, and I'm going to do this while we're in an elevator going to the 17th floor, and then I'm never going to see you again. So often my approach is, okay, quick soundbite, and then here's where you can get more information. That's why there's so much free information on my website. Like I
Mhm.
don't gate very much content, so you can access all of this information for free on my website. Obviously, I would love it if you would buy a book or an online course, but my main goal is to make accurate health information accessible. So that's why it needs to be free and it's just there on the
Well,
internet.
you'll collect in perpetuity on that regard.
I hope so. um, but I think that this needs to be a grassroots movement, right?
Yeah.
So educating the person out there who's just looking for more information while not trying to be evangelical. So sometimes I'll end up in these conversations. People aren't ready to know that donut is not a good food, is not a good choice, and that if they just go for a run for an hour, it'll all balance out. And so I liken that part to a smoker. Nobody smokes thinking it's good for them. Everybody knows there's the Surgeon General's warning on the package. Everyone knows it's going to cause them a problem. And there's no amount of peer pressure from your family that's going to compel you to quit. It has to come from inside. You have to be self motivated to quit. And then there's lots of tools. So I create those tools. What's missing in the diet world is that Surgeon's General warning. And so
Yeah.
in my elevator pitch, my in for most people is to talk about nutrient sufficiency. So we think about the food that we eat as energy,
Mhm.
but it's not just that, it's also raw materials. So it is the basic building blocks of our skin cells and our muscles and our bones and our hormones, but it's also the raw materials that are used up in chemical reactions. So every time you breathe, there's a chemical reaction. You're taking that oxygen, you're turning it into energy, and you're breathing out carbon dioxide. So we have all of these chemical reactions that are happening in every single cell that use raw materials, and those raw materials are the micronutrients we get from food. So the things that are not energy, that's macronutrients.
Mhm.
The things that we need, like vitamins, minerals, essential amino acids, essential fatty acids. If we have more time, we can talk about phytochemicals. But these things are what we need for all those chemical reactions. And every system in our body achieves its job through chemical reactions. So if we can't provide the raw materials for those chemical reactions to happen, then that system, the respiratory system, the reproductive system, the digestive system, detoxification, central nervous system, it can't do its job. So we cannot be healthy without the raw materials that every biological system in our body needs to perform its functions. And where do you get those raw materials? Well, it turns out donut does not have very much in terms of raw material, lots of energy, almost nothing in terms of vitamins or minerals or essential fats or essential protein, right? So almost nothing. So you're getting energy to drive a reaction without the raw materials that are actually
Yeah.
the main part of the reaction. So where do we get those things? We get them from whole fruits and vegetables, from seafood, from meat, and really like the balance should be probably three-quarters vegetables and fruit, nuts and seeds, and like a quarter of our diet from animal foods. that also would be great for the planet if we could
Yeah.
balance that better. So you start I mean, the more time I have with somebody, the more I can educate
The
them
more
in
in depth
terms
you can
of
go.
those chemical reactions, and then also how supporting their health also helps fix a lot of our environmental problems. Right, the entire planet would benefit from moving to a
Yeah.
system where we are eating. I refer to paleo as like a plant-based diet. I know there's not everybody within the paleo sphere implements paleo diet that way. There are some T-bone steak lovers out there, and I like a T-bone steak as much as the next girl.
Kill the
But
cow. Give me the
um,
dead cow.
right, but I just think a salad
No,
with
for
steak
sure.
is a
It's
good
it's
idea.
about balance. Like it needs to be balanced, and obviously it's what do they say? Like everything in moderation. Like sure, if you like a steak, get the steak. Obviously not everything in
So
moderation, but
I think the term everything in moderation, there's a lot of things that I build into my educational resources that are about moderation, right?
mhm.
So moderate carb intake, paleo should not be low carb or high carb. Moderate fat intake, paleo should not be high fat or low fat. It should be relatively high fiber. The only way to be high fiber is to be at least moderate carb, right? So
Yeah.
we start talking about the actual needs of the body, and that really ends up in eating as much different things as we can, right? Expanding variety, expanding diversity of foods. But I think I shy away from the phrase everything in moderation. And I think that's because as a society, we use that phrase to
Because I'm gonna go get a donut.
rationalize a bad choice, right?
Yeah.
So I can eat that donut because I do everything in moderation. And I think that
Everything healthy in
understanding,
moderation.
yeah, I think that everything in moderation should not be used as an excuse.
Yeah.
Um, it is a if you actually just look at what the words mean, it is definitely um, the our biology is full of what are called U-shaped curves, and a U-shaped curve means that at the low end of the response, we're not getting enough to get whatever benefit is, and at the high end, we're getting so much that we start to get a detriment. And we have this like magical happy medium in the middle where our body is responding to that stimulus. And this applies to literally thousands of different things in biology, the U-shaped curve. So it basically means too little is a problem and too much is a problem. We want this happy medium. And that is what everything in moderation means. It means stay in the middle of the U-shaped curve. But we don't think of it that way. We think of
Yeah.
it in terms of rationalizing a cheat or an indulgence or a not as good choice as the
Whatever
other
we need it to
choice.
mean at the time.
Yeah, and I think I don't want paleo or healthy guidelines. I don't think we need to be attached to this paleo label. It is about making a better choice most of the time. It's
Hmm.
not about perfection. It's not about, no one should eat gluten, right? It's not about that dogma. But at the same time, I'm not going to give you an easy out.
For sure.
So I really want you to understand what that donut is doing and why that apple would have been a better choice. And that doesn't mean that you have to choose the apple every time, but I'm not going to let you just say everything in moderation and that's why that donut's okay. Because that donut is not moderation. That donut is all refined carbohydrates and unhealthy
It's an
fats.
extreme just in a small package.
Yeah. And so I think that I like the idea of the phrase, but not how it's actually typically used.
No, I love it. Can you give us just a little clarification on the importance of vitamin K? The
Yeah.
leafy greens, because I don't think, there's all of this chatter, obviously in your world that's specifically about the gut, but for the other 98% of us on this side of it, and I only know this because of conversations that I've had on the podcast.
Right.
And when I first heard it, I was like, wow, I feel like I'm in elementary school being taught something totally new here because it's
Yeah.
not talked about. It's not the social norm. It's all about vitamin C, vitamin D, or whatever it is. And then it's like vitamin K, the leafy greens, like your gut, like it controls, like your body's an ecosystem.
Right.
And
So
you're not taking care of it if you're just eating whatever, everything in moderation.
I mean, we could have a detailed conversation about pretty much any essential vitamin or nutrient that gets like really into the weeds.
Uh-huh.
But vitamin K is one of the most recent discovered nutrients. We're still discovering functions for it. So it used to be thought that there was only one form of vitamin K, vitamin K1, and that vitamin K1 is really important for clotting factors. So that is like things like platelets, but also these class of proteins that are called clotting factor. It's
Yeah.
really counterintuitive. But that's how if you cut yourself, that's why you don't just start leaking
Bleeding
out
out.
blood forever, right? So clotting's super great. We love clotting. And vitamin K is one of the main nutrients required for making all of the things in our body that are responsible for clotting. So vitamin K, that's why it's an essential nutrient. But we have relatively recently, like in the 80s, discovered that there's another form of vitamin K called vitamin K2. And vitamin K2 has something like, if I remember correctly, it's something like 13 different isoforms. So there's also like K21, K22, K2. I mean,
Hmm.
there's 4 and 7 are the best studied, but there's a whole pile of different isoforms of vitamin K2. And it turns out that vitamin K2 also helps with all of these clotting things. So our body can use K1 or K2 for all of the blood clot stuff.
Yeah.
But K2 has some additional roles. It's really important in the immune system. It's really important in the central nervous system. So that's brain and nerves. And it's really important in bones, bone remodeling. So that's almost everything, right? So when you start
Yeah.
talking about the immune systems everywhere, bones are what keeps our structures intact, so we're not little puddles of jello. Our immune system defends us from everything, and the central nervous system pretty much controls everything, right? It controls our hormones, our organ function, whether or not our muscles are moving. So a deficiency in vitamin K is not just now when I cut myself, I take longer to clot. It's impacting all of those other systems and then the crosstalk between those systems and everything else.
Okay.
So vitamin K is super important. Now, here's some cool fun facts. About 90% of the vitamin K that you eat is vitamin K1, and we're predominantly getting that from green vegetables.
Okay.
Um, the rest of it, that 10%, is vitamin K2 in different forms, and you're predominantly getting that from animal foods, especially grass-fed. So like any animal that spends some time outside, like organic animals spend more time outside than non-organic. That's where you're getting most of your K2, especially in, right, it's a fat-soluble vitamin, so you're especially getting it from the fat. So what you eat is 90% K1, 10% K2. But what is in your body, if I was to just take a measurement of what's in your cells, about 50% of the vitamin K in your body is K1, and the other 50% is different isoforms of K2. And the reason for that is your gut bacteria. Your gut bacteria make K2 from K1, but they can also do what's called de novo vitamin synthesis, which means they're just making it out of all kinds of other raw materials. And K2 is way more easily absorbed than K1. So as your gut bacteria make K2, it's getting into your body, which is why you go from a 90-10 ratio to a
So
50-50
50-50.
ratio. And this is why it's cool, because all of these K1 rich foods, leafy greens, are also great foods for our gut bacteria. They like to eat all that fiber, and all the phytochemicals help keep them healthy. So it's an interesting food, because in paleo alternative health communities, we got really into like grass-fed butter for a while because it has K2. Like it was really, we got way into K2. There's K2 supplements, and certainly I'm not anti-supplement. I'm a supporter of smart supplement use. So do some testing with a functional medicine doctor and supplement based on test results, not just based on symptoms. But actually, it turns out that just supporting a healthy gut microbiome, a healthy community of bacteria in our guts, is actually sufficient for us to get enough K2, provided we're eating lots of green vegetables for that K1 substrate for them.
So
Cool, right?
no, yeah. So one of the simplest ways to ensure a healthy gut
Mm-hmm.
is up the leafy greens.
Yeah. You
Not
want to talk
doused
about
in,
gut health?
not doused in dressing, of course.
Yeah.
Because
I
I
so
was
I'm
that
just
guy. I'll go to Costco and I'm just gonna get the chicken Caesar salad, but I am emptying all of the dressing on it
dressing.
because I don't want to taste the green.
This is so funny too because lettuce is my favorite vegetable, and I realize I'm completely weird in this regard, but I will
What's the
just
best
sit.
lettuce?
I like any sweet lettuce, so any like romaine or a leaf lettuce. But really, like romaine is very nutrient dense. It's about as nutrient dense as kale. Anything with kind of purpley leaves is really rich in a type of phytochemical called anthocyanins, which are really important antioxidants.
Hmm.
So basically, iceberg is like the junk lettuce, and anything else is a good choice. It's pretty much
So the
the
one
realm of
that's out there
lettuce.
everywhere, don't eat that one. Get the one
Right,
that's
the
hidden
one
hidden behind the corner that they
The
don't
one where
want you
you
to
get
eat.
like 2 tablespoons shaved onto your fast food burger.
Yeah.
That's the one that's not doing much for you. Can't call that a vegetable.
But it's
But
green. It's also
yeah,
white.
I mean, it's green. It's not even really that
It's like
green, is it?
white. It's like an opaque.
Yeah. I mean, so literally, if you were to compare iceberg lettuce to something like kale, the iceberg lettuce, if you look at the the carotenoid content, so those are vitamin A precursors, one leaf of kale has the same amount of carotenoids as 3 heads of iceberg lettuce.
Well, there you go.
Most people would rather eat just one leaf of kale, even if
Yeah.
kale's not your favorite thing.
I don't think
Yeah, and
I've
high
ever had
vegetable
it.
content in general is really important for the gut microbiome. I mean, I'm writing a whole book on the gut microbiome right now, so this is like super my jam. Um, super. There's so
We're
much.
about ready to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, we're gonna like talk about the gut microbiome for an hour now. But if I to distill, to just look at my summary chapter, high vegetable consumption is the most important thing, and no matter how, what benefits you're looking at from vegetable consumption, it's like the one thing that like all everyone who reads the nutrition literature can agree the science is really unequivocal that we need to be eating a lot more vegetables than we are. And it looks like we should be aiming for at least 8 servings of vegetables and fresh fruit per day. That should be more heavily balanced towards the vegetables than the fruit, but fruit does count. And so that, I say it's 2 servings at breakfast and 3 servings at lunch and dinner. That's not that bad.
Hmm.
But the average American consumes 1.5 servings of fresh fruits and vegetables per day. So there means there's a lot of room for improvement. But the science tells us that this is one of the like lowest hanging fruit for our health. So I would say, if I'm talking to somebody who's not ready for dietary changes, I'm not going to tell them to give up wheat and right and all the things that they need to stop eating.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell them why they need to eat more vegetables and why vegetable juices don't count. Has to be the whole vegetable. A smoothie counts, a juice doesn't. Okay, so it really has to be everything. If you want to blend it up in your blender to make it tasty, by all means. But that is what gives us the best bang for our buck in terms of health and diet, and it's
Okay.
because of the fiber content supporting the gut microbiome, but also vegetables and fruit are very, very rich in antioxidants that we tend to not get enough of if we're eating other foods. And they're also very rich in vitamins and minerals, several of which we tend to be deficient in.
No, I love it. And obviously this next question can kind of tie back to what you experienced in your life. What are some of the subtle kind of signals from the body? Right? Because that's you were getting a lot of subtle signals that you were just ignoring. And
I
then
was getting a lot of non-subtle.
you hit the wall because because probably like me where I'm just hard-headed where it's going to take a really big oh okay yeah something really needs to change.
Yeah.
But what are some of the small things that are happening that people might be ignoring and be like, "Oh, I'm just a little tired," because it's easy for us to trick ourselves and be like, "Oh, it's just cuz I'm working so much."
Right.
Or it's like, "No, it's probably your body trying to tell you something." What are some of those signals that you're seeing in your world that, the everyday person might not even realize it's their body telling them that there needs to be some sort of an intake change?
Everything. So, any kind of diagnosis, every chronic illness links back to diet and lifestyle, even if it's not like the simplistic cause, right? So we can draw really close links between diet and say cardiovascular disease or diet and diabetes, but every diagnosis, you get diagnosed with gout, that's related to what you're eating. It's related to high fructose intake,
Mm-hmm.
mainly. Any kind of autoimmune disease, asthma, allergies, they all are related to our diet and lifestyle choices, in a way that changing diet and lifestyle can maybe not reverse the disease, right? Maybe not make it go away completely, but can improve symptoms typically, can slow down progression of disease if you're talking about something that's degenerative. And there are definitely situations where you can completely reverse disease by changing diet and lifestyle. So
Yeah.
any kind of diagnosis, but in the we put on the blinders and we just keep going and we ignore all the things. Any tired, an energy dip in the afternoon, not sleeping well, cravings of any kind. So craving sugar, craving fat, craving salt, craving coffee, right? All of cravings are generally related to nutrient deficiencies and hormone imbalances, often stress hormones.
Yeah.
Any kind of pain. So joint pain, muscle stiffness, headaches, all of those things are related. Any GI symptom. So if you don't have beautiful bowel movements with no weirdo symptoms associated with it, if you have bloating when you eat or heartburn, stomach aches, if you're not having a bowel movement every day, if your bowel movements are too soft or too hard, all of those things are a sign of things not being right in
Okay.
terms of your diet and lifestyle. And mood. I don't think we recognize general like societal knowledge. We don't
Hmm.
recognize how much our mood is tied to our diet and lifestyle. And
Hmm.
we can maybe say stress, like, yeah, I understand that I'm grumpy when I'm stressed, but it's things like not getting enough magnesium or omega-3 fats or eating too few carbs or too many carbs or high fat diets can cause mood issues. All the different lifestyle factors, right? Like
Yeah.
movement, everything. It all feeds into mood and cognition. So a lot of us are walking around with brain fog with no idea of what that actually means. It basically means that your brain is not as with it as it could be if you didn't have the brain fog. So if you have road rage, you need to take a real close look at diet
Eat
and
more
lifestyle.
lettuce.
Eat that, leave one leaf of kale. Um, uh, if you if little things stress you out,
Uh-huh.
so the example I often give is like if you were fine, but then you hit traffic on your way to a meeting, and now you realize that you're going to be late, and it's like you're freaking out. That's a sign of like things not being right. Like it should be oh, traffic, that's inconvenient, right? Like so we should be able to handle these additional things that we didn't plan for with a little bit more grace than I think a lot of us do. And that doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect, right? I'm not talking about perfection, but laughing easily. So if my kid tells me like a really bad joke, because my kids are 9 and 12, so most of the jokes they tell are really bad jokes. I find them so like the worse the joke is, the funnier it is to me because I realize that they think it's funny, that it's worth repeating, but it doesn't make any sense. It's not a good joke, and I find it
That's
funny
probably
that
why
they
it's
think it's
funny.
funny. And so I just laugh like, oh, like complete like it's the most amazing thing. It's the most amazing thing that they think these bad jokes are good jokes. And being able to just laugh easily is an amazing sign of health. Um, Being able to sleep well, to fall asleep well, to wake up feeling rested. Ideally, we would be able to get through a day without coffee.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean that we have to give up coffee because coffee is deliciously
No, it's
wonderful.
beans. I'm being
It's
healthy. It's
it's
beans.
actually it's actually not a legume, but it's coffee actually for a lot of people. And again, we can get into the weeds on the coffee
Yeah.
research. There's responders and non-responders. So for some people, coffee is inflammatory, and for other people, it's not. So for some people, it increases disease risk, and for others, it's not. And there's not a good sense. There's a couple of genes that have been tied to it. There's not a really good sense of why you might be a responder or a non-responder.
There's
But
not
even
enough
taking that
data for you to make a decision.
right, but I mean, other than doing some testing and trying it out and trying to, eliminate it and then try challenging it and see how it goes. But even taking that out of the conversation, none of us should be relying on it.
Yeah.
None of us should need it to get on with our day.
I'm
Um,
100% with you, but my wife is going to hate you.
um, I think though, when you hit that, sometimes it's related to diet.
Uh-huh.
And there's lots of ways that we can tweak diet to optimize. And optimizing a diet looks different for different people. So within paleo, there's lots of shades of paleo. There's a thing called the autoimmune protocol that's designed to maximize immune regulation for people with autoimmune disease, right? So there's a lot of tangential diets that have a lot in common. There's lots of ways that we
Hmm.
can get in into the details of your diet and tinker so that you can get more out of the food that you're eating. But it's not always about food. Sometimes it's about just actually making sure we get enough sleep. Science will tell
Sleep is a
us
big
that
one, yeah.
Yeah, science will tell us that sleep has a bigger impact on, say, our insulin sensitivity than anything we're eating. So there's been studies that look at 6 months of, bad American style diet versus one night of lost sleep. And the one night of lost sleep is worse for insulin sensitivity than the 6 months of bad diet. So sometimes we just need to go to bed earlier and I think all grown-ups should have bedtimes too. Like we make our kids go to bed on time and then we sleep with whatever hours we have left over on the day after we finish our to-do
Yeah,
lists. I'm like, no, sleep earns its spot on the to-do list. Like,
for
you know
sure.
how you don't like your kid after they went to bed late and they didn't sleep in and you're like, I'm just trying to not punch my kid in the face all day. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only parent who has had that
Oh, there's
experience. You know
probably
how you
parents
don't
that have punched their kids in the face.
Okay, that's the difference between a good parent and a bad parent. So a good
We don't
parent
act on it.
doesn't act on it and a bad parent does. That's it.
I'll
That's the
think it all
whole
day. Well, yeah, they're
so
kids. They deserve. Yeah, they're
but
stupid.
they're
They're stupid and they
they
think they know everything. How do I know? I was one. That's how I know.
yeah.
Everything I'm saying to my younger self.
I remember thinking I was very grown up at 15.
Oh,
Um,
I thought I knew it all.
yeah, I was not.
Yeah,
I learned a
didn't
lot of
didn't
things
know
after that.
anything. And that's
But
the irritating part because I was on a vacation with my mom and my kids, and I forget what we were talking about, and then something came up just talking about my mom because she's right there, and I was like, yeah, and that's one of the things that pisses me off because I hate the fact that everything that Nana told me was right. Because then I'm like, no, I don't know. You don't know better. Like I know
yeah,
everything, right? And then as I grow older, obviously older and wiser, then it's like, damn it,
right?
and it pisses
Yeah.
me off. And
How
she's
many
just sitting
times
there
have you
like, yes.
apologized
She's
to your
like, yeah,
parents since having
stupid.
kids?
Probably
Because
probably just a few really really good ones.
yeah.
Not so continuous, just because it's like I'm not gonna give you that satisfaction, but because I
I feel
know that
like
you're gonna just relish this. So I was just like, yeah, just enjoy these moments. I'm admitting it in front of the kids. I admit the defeat,
I'm,
but I'm still gonna beat the crap out of my kids because you did it to me. It's my turn. Mentally,
there's
not physically. I don't beat my kids.
how old are your kids?
Let's see. 10, 12, and 14 on Friday.
Okay, so very similar to mine. So mine are 9 and 12, and
It's okay. The guns are clean. Alibis are ready. We're good to go.
okay. But I feel like there must be something. I'm really fascinated by the neuroscience of adolescence because I have two kids that are one who's solidly in adolescence and one who's about to enter it. And I've been thinking though, like as much as I'm trying to understand what's changing in their brains that's
Hmm.
driving a lot of their confidence that they know it all, for example, I don't know if you have this experience. I really enjoy embarrassing my kids in public. I don't know if maybe I'm just like, maybe
Oh,
it's just
I'm
me.
all for it.
Oh
Other people,
yeah,
it's like so. A lot of people they'll look at me and be like, "You're so mean," and I'm so. I'm like, "No, I'm not. I just do the things you think about."
it's super fun. And I realized
That's
that
part of being
my,
a parent, though, because you're
my
gonna laugh
parents
about it
did it
later.
to
It's like
me too.
I'm just creating memories for us to laugh about later.
That's it. That's it.
Call it
Because
what you want.
I remember being embarrassed by my parents, and now I'm doing it to my kids. And I rein in my worst impulses for sure.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
But
like go around and like was it like pantsing, right?
right,
Like
no, no,
back
no,
in my day, I'm not gonna go around and pants my teenage
no.
daughter in public. Like that's
Clearly,
ridiculous.
no. It's like
I
hugging
might
them
do
in
it to
front
my
of their
son.
friends, right? It's hugging them in front of their friends.
Oh
That
yeah,
is like the worst possible
for
thing
a
I could do as a
teenager,
parent.
absolutely.
Yeah. So no, it's like showing signs of, but I know that she doesn't want me to do it in front of her friends, and I do it anyways. Um, But I think that there must be something in terms of like our neurology as parents that are driving that type of interaction, because I think that a lot of the rite of passage of adolescence, where they're trying to develop themselves as independent people, is like in response to us embarrassing them in public. I'm pretty sure there's like some kind of developmental phase that we go through as parents when we have teenagers in the house. I need to find the research on that, but
Maybe it's kind of like they're hitting a certain age, and we know it's kind of where they're air quote becoming their own person, and so we're gonna like put our like this is our stamp. Be like, pink, nope, you will always be mine, no matter what you think. Because that's the
yeah.
thing, right? You never stop being a parent. Like
No.
that's always gonna be. I'm gonna be 80. She's gonna be 60. He's like, well, you're still my baby girl.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 60, Dad. I'm 80, so shut up.
And I still know more than you.
Yeah, I still got, no matter what, I got 20 years on you. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I think also one of the big rites of passage of parenthood is when you realize what you need to apologize to your parents for. And I feel like
Sure.
there's like a new major realization of what I did to my parents every couple of years, where I'm like, oh,
I was really stupid.
yeah, that was not cool. Yeah. Better say sorry for that one. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I just wait. I'll just let it all add up and be like, here's the blanket. I was really dumb. Sorry. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Just text. Sorry.
I think it's very satisfying for our parents to watch us go through those realizations.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, what is it? It's like the cycle of life, right? You never really you don't know what you don't know, but it's even harder when you just think you know it all, which is why it's kind of just like when you have your teenager kind of just talking to you, and you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, I look forward to life for you. Because I can't wait to tell you I told you so, and that you should have ate more kale. That's why you're losing your temper.
But to bring this full circle, that's what diet education is like. It's like everyone's walking around like a teenager who knows it all because we got given this one little infographic that we memorized. And the rest of us are like the parents trying to be like, actually, look at all of this information that we need to integrate.
Wow, so the rest of us are just dumb teenagers in Europe.
And that's why I'm the
paleo mom. Mic drop. Right there. Mic drop. She just walked off stage. Everybody's just sitting there looking at each other befuddled like, what the heck just happened? It's like, no, this isn't a hip-hop concert. How did this just happen? No, I love it. It's so true. There's a lot of things that need to be changed, and it's so enlightening, really, whenever I have a guest speaker on that's able to share their insights, and the best part is their personal experience, because that's what I think people open up to a lot more, because you can give me the information, because that's what they say, especially in sales, right? People are never going to buy from you until they know you, like you, and trust you. So I don't care what you know, because you don't really care.
For sure. There's some really interesting science that says, looking at the psychology of diets, and it says like the diet that you're most likely to try is the one that your friend or relative followed and you saw some kind of visible result.
Yep.
So your friend who lost 20 pounds, you're going to ask them what they did and you're going to do that. And you're not necessarily going to vet it, right? You're just going to be like, tell me what you did, and then I'm going to go do it. And that's sometimes how diets can get watered down over time in terms of like the actual structure. But I feel like that's one of, not just me in this space, but the people who've been very successful as influencers and thought leaders within nutrition, within alternative health. It's something that we all have in common, is that we're all that friend, because what I went through is such a common story. I mean, I maybe not the PhD in medical biophysics part, but the struggles with weight as a teenager, that nothing I did mattered. I developed binge eating disorder because I became so defeated because my body didn't respond to me cutting calories and exercising more. Like that didn't work for me because I had hypothyroidism. And it's that part of my story that is the reason why I'm motivated to create these educational resources now. But it's also the part that people see themselves in what I've gone through, and that resonates. And that's one of the reasons why, when people want to talk to me about starting a blog or writing a book or trying to enter this field, it feels very saturated from the outside looking in. You say, oh, there's all these different people who are talking about it, and I'm always saying there's more room. There's so much more room because my story certainly resonates with a lot of people, right? Hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's thyroiditis is the most common autoimmune disease. Hypothyroidism affects nearly 20% of women. Mm-hmm. But there's parts of my story that's not going to resonate with everybody. And maybe your story does. Maybe your story is the story that somebody hears and they see themselves in you and they don't see themselves in me. Yep. And so your voice becomes a really important voice because you can reach other people through your story. And so I think that one of the things that the internet has done for the nutrition world, the alternative health, complementary health world in general, there's issues, right? Like where sometimes people have platforms that are not using them responsibly and they are pushing bad information. Yeah. And it's hard to vet that sometimes. So there's definitely a cost for the benefit. But one of the benefits is the ability for anybody with an internet connection to reach other people. It used to be you'd only reach your neighbors and whoever, worked out at the YMCA that you worked out at. Yeah. Now your story can reach someone in a different country, and it has shrunk the world in a way that allows us to educate, but also to connect and engage with people in a way that just wasn't possible before. So before, the only way that you got to write a diet book was by being an MD who some editor at some publishing house really liked.
You had the credentials to back writing a diet book.
But maybe not. There was a lot of bad diet books back then.
I don't know. I didn't read any of them.
I read them all. So I knew so much about diets and nothing worked. But I think that it's one of the really amazing things about this space right now is that if you are passionate about what you do mm-hmm. and you are clear on your message and you're clear on who you want to reach, the entire world is in front of you. Like you can absolutely achieve that now, and your voice matters. So it's not just about whether or not you're motivated to enter this space, but please come in, right? You are going to help us grow this community. It's not that we're all trying to carve out our piece of the pie. We are working together to grow the pie. And
to make a bigger pie, yep.
It's an amazing time and such amazing tools at our disposal to be able to really make positive change in the world.
No, I love it. And I know we're coming up on time here. So what is the one thing that you're going to say to somebody that is dealing with the overweight issue or somebody that knows somebody? Because it's not something that, like, we know that they're thinking, but they're not always willing to talk or bring up their concerns about it. So what are you going to say to the listener that was like, hey, here's the first couple of steps that I did that helped me start this journey to having a better life and living a better life? Because it's a lot of people, they're just stuck in, that's their norm, that's how they are. But I don't think that's the case,
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to say is this is not your fault. Mm-hmm. This is not a failure of yours. I mean, I really wish someone had said that to me as a teenager. This is not a problem with you. This is your body you need better information. That is the piece that's missing. Nobody has given you the information that you need yet to be able to regain your health and keep it. And that is the piece that's missing is actual good information. And from there, if we want to talk about like top takeaways in terms of good information, I would say get enough sleep, eat more vegetables, and try not to sit all day, take movement breaks. Like those would be my like top things.
Those little things.
Yeah, and for most people, well, getting enough sleep for most people is not a little thing. For most people, that's the hardest thing. But there's excellent research showing that if you actually get enough sleep, that you naturally gravitate towards healthier foods, that you regulate your appetite, that you're more motivated to move, that you're right, like everything, right, your performance, your cognition, everything is
Mm-hmm.
better. So if you, for often when I talk with people who really struggle with implementation of some aspect of a therapeutic diet, the thing we work on is sleep. We don't work on how are you going to eat more oysters. We work on like, what time do you go to bed at night? Do you go to bed at the same time every night? What type of alarm are you waking up to? What's your bedroom like? What's your bedtime routine like? So we work on
Mm-hmm.
all of the problem solving around sleep, and then everything else becomes easier. So sleep is a really magical key. But the bigger theme here is the education piece. I don't want to give you a soundbite. I don't want to give you 7 tips to live a better life. I want to sit and have a real conversation. It's why most of my educational materials are like 15, 16 hours of video lectures. And it's because I want to take this time to give you this thorough education so that you can tinker with what your body actually needs so you can individualize your approach and really understand it. Because, and this is my belief, although there's some science to back this up, I believe that if you really understand why this food is better than that food, you're going to be more successful in actually making that better choice most of the time. So I think that, it's not your fault. There's some simple things that you can start on right now, like get enough sleep and eat some more vegetables. But the bigger thing is be open to challenging your beliefs around food and lifestyle and what is important.
Love it. So if you know somebody that needs that, share it. If that's you, check her out, the Paleo Mom. And then, so what are all your social media outlets, and where can people find you and get all of this good information? Because I know you have a lot of good information out there.
Yeah, I just
Is it just the
keep making more content.
paleomom.com?
If you go to thepaleomom.com, you can link to everything that I do from there. But I'm on Pinterest and Instagram and Facebook and sort of on Twitter. I'm not very good at Twitter. I don't talk short. Have we learned this already? But you can
LinkedIn.
still follow me on Twitter. I still post. And I have a podcast called The Paleo View. I have 4 books, working on number 5. I have online courses. But really, like, if just remember thepaleomom.com, not paleomom.com. There's
The
only
pay.
one. Thepaleomom.com.
Love it.
And from there, you can link to everything.
She,
Everything's easy to find from there.
you're anywhere and everywhere.
That's where the people are.
Yep, there we go. No, I love it. Thank you so much for your time. The best ending would have been right when you did the like, and that's why I'm the Paleo Mom. Boom,
Mic
mic drop.
drop.
But on that note, thank you, Sarah, for your time. I look forward to having you on again, and because you're just gonna have a whole nother 10 hours worth of conversation ready for us. I mean, we do. That's just we're gonna find rabbit holes. We're gonna spend an hour just talking about. "Oh, so how did you embarrass your kid last week?"
Yeah.
But yeah, we
Fun.
will definitely have you back on. I look forward to seeing all your success, and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye bye. Thank you so much for listening today to this episode. I know you're having fun because I'm having a ton of fun. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends because we got so much more and I don't want anybody to miss it. Let's change lives. Share the podcast.